Hey, it's Mazzy. Welcome back to the channel. Shootout. Shootout. I don't do a lot of shootouts, but this is an album that I absolutely love. It's one of my all-time favorite records, and it's not even my favorite record by this artist. Do you know what this is? Can you tell from this insert? This is the inner sleeve. This is a repro of the original inner sleeve, and I'm going to compare, and I did compare, Warren Zevon's second Asylum album, his actual third proper album, but we'll just count the Asylums for now. This is Excitable Boy from 1978. This was co-produced by Waddy Wachtel and Jackson Browne. Now, Jackson Browne produced his first solo album in 1976, the self-titled album. This is my personal favorite. This is a perfect record, but we're not talking about that now. We're talking about Excitable Boy, the biggest album of his career, because it had the hit single, the massive hit, the novelty song, if you will, Werewolves of London. I'll get to that a little bit because it's not even his greatest song, not even near the top, but it's the most famous for a lot of reasons, and it's a cool song. And it's basically Fleetwood Mac. Did you know that? Did you know Werewolves of London is probably as close to Fleetwood Mac as almost any other Fleetwood Mac record, and I'll tell you why when we get to that song. But I'm here because I did a comparison, because this is, seriously, one of my top records. And this is the Rhino Reserve Edition. You can get these for about $32. These were pressed by Fidelity Pressing. Excellent pressings. I'll give you a little spoiler alert. This is the quietest pressing out of all the pressings I have. It has the lowest noise floor. It's dead silent, and it's an excellent recording. But it's very different than the original. It's different from the MoFi, which I'll get to that too. So I'm really comparing three versions. This album, again, was a follow-up, and some of these songs were considered for the first album. Even Werewolves of London was considered by Jackson Browne. He thought he would space it out a little bit. To his credit, I think. I don't think he really wanted that right off the bat. And again, that first one is just a wonderful record. I love his noir style of songwriting. He writes about the underbelly of Los Angeles and a really kind of wry sense of humor, a darkness to his songs, even some of his romantic love songs. There's a little bit of a darkness to it. Think of it like later Coen Brothers films, in that way, the sense of Los Angeles. He also writes a lot of historic songs, a lot of songs about sports, baseball, and boxers. That would be later on in future albums. But this is the one, again, that broke him. And I had the pleasure of seeing him maybe about 6 times. I met him once when this album came out at KSAN Radio. And he actually, as he departed after he met me over a period of about an hour, him at the station, he said, "So long, Norman." And if you know that first album, that's the end of one of the lyrics of one of his songs. So I was like melting. Warren Zevon. He could be a volatile artist. And obviously, having this on the insert, he was had guns, alcohol, drugs, all the three food groups in that kind of volatile lifestyle. But that is quite the insert on this. Now, of course, just a little background, the Rhino Reserve. This was cut by Chris Bellman, as I said, pressed at Fidelity Pressings. That's Mobile Fidelity's pressing plant in Oxford, California. And they do an excellent job on this. That's a real sweet spot in the Rhino all analog world. The Rhino Reserves have these custom labels. I mean, some always want faithful labels to the original. I don't care. It gives me a good idea of which is which when I'm pulling out, especially when you're doing the shootouts. But usually on a one-off, I have no problem with a new record having a label of today. Think of even, like, go back to Warner Brothers, just for instance. Do you remember the Greenie label? And then what, 3-4 years later, the Palm Tree label? And then they had the lighter kind of tan label. Labels change, even in record companies, as records are released. Sometimes you get it in some of these reissues of various labels. Sometimes you don't. It's the music, stupid, right? But excellent Chris Bell cut, and I'll get to that in a little bit. Then, of course, my original from 1978. Beautiful record. Of course, these Asylum records were well pressed then. This was after the oil crisis. So very flat, fairly quiet, but not totally quiet. And, you know, over the years, this has been played a lot, but I don't think it's that. I think it's just the nature of those days of pressing, when you're pressing hundreds of thousands of records. Hopefully they did with this record. I'm sure they did. This went platinum, this record, eventually. The mobile fidelity. Now, those of you who follow me know I have a problem with double 45. This is a double 45 record. Now, the good thing about this, I love this satin cover. Actually, the masthead, red masthead, instead of that banner you usually get, it is a banner, but it kind of bleeds beautifully, and it supplements, it supports the actual cover here. Now, in terms of the printing, there's more red in his face. Must have had a night of drinking than the original here. You can see the tonality on here. The tonality of the original is much closer on the Rhino Reserve. So we got some natural tones here. Still not as rich as the originals. And if you don't compare it, you don't know the difference. I quite like this. And this is a gatefold. The original is not. So you have the inner sleeve here. Obviously that gunshot and the lyrics that are on the back of the inner sleeve. So they basically reproduce the inner sleeve. Double 45 cut, so it spills over. I'm not a fan of double 45s, but you get that expansiveness, wider grooves and everything, and theoretically a deeper, fuller sound. So the mobile fidelity was cut by Krieg Wunderlich. I quite like his cuts, and he's doing has been doing for the last decade plus most of the vinyl at Mobile Fidelity. And I'm a fan of a lot of this stuff, not everything. Of course, this is a analog master to DSD to analog console to the lathe. So there are analog components in the chain, but it's not an all analog record. Not as quiet, actually, as a Rhino Reserve. I suppose things now, they have their own pressing plant. So it'll be interesting to see if records like this are as quiet. I think all the Fidelity pressings I've been getting from Mobile Fidelity and Rhino Hi-Fi and a few other issues that are coming out from that pressing plant are dead silent. So that is a plus. Just to kind of show you a little entertainment thing, back in my record store days, record business days, the Warner Electro Asylum guy gave me this promo. This is a picture disc of the single. This is Werewolves of London, backed with Roland the Headless Thompson gunner. Werewolf, of course, is on both sides of this picture, so I don't need to take it out for you. It's the same image on both sides, and you have the weapon for dinner on the back side of it. This is a novelty. Again, this was a promo only. This wasn't a retail sale, but of course I kept it in my collection. And then just to show off one more copy. A few years ago, my friend Dylan at Noble Records in North Carolina acquired a collection, and there were 5 autographed copies of Warren Zevon album, and I bought them all from him since I'm a major fan. Ahoo! Ahoo! Hoo! Doesn't even sound like Warren Zevon, does it? But it's cool to have an autographed copy of him. Again, I'm a big fan of this this gentleman, the gentleman boy himself, Warren Zevon, autographed Excitable Boy. The differences between these three. The original is a beautiful sounding record. It's bright and not overly bright. It's rich. It's got that sound of the 70s. It's got the 70s recording sound. It's like a Jackson Browne record, like a Joni Mitchell record. I love how open these records are, and the musicianship. Of course, let me go through this a little bit. You got Warren Zevon, you got Lee Sklar, that great bass player on a lot of the tracks, not all of them. Of course, Waddy Wachtel is all over this in his guitar playing and background vocals to some extent. And he just really nails it. He played with Linda Ronstadt, Jackson Browne, a lot of that whole LA clique at the time of LA musicianship. You got Russ Kunkel on drums here and Danny Korchmar on percussion, starting off with Johnny Strikes Up the Band. What a great opening. And the bass on that is incredible, just the way it opens. What's great about this record, it's not overproduced. The first album of his has more strings. Now, Warren Zevon was a piano player and a guitar player, but mostly piano early on his records. He also scored his own records. He could write string parts. He came out of being the band leader for some years with the Everly Brothers, but he has these kind of influence of Aaron Copland, the American classical composer, and it's just a really wonderful string sound when he does add strings. Again, more on the first album than this album. So that's a beautiful version. You get in a lot of also historic political songwriting and lyrics. Johnny Strikes Up the Band is just a perfect opening. It's almost like the Sgt. Pepper opening and Sing the Song All Together. It's a perfect album opener, a perfect concert opener. Then you get into Rollin' the Headless Thompson Gunner, which is a fictitious historical song based on reality, but takes it into a whole world, almost like Ichabod Crane's world of Sleepy Hollow. And it's what a wonderful song. You also have Bob Glaub on bass, Russ Kunkel on drums, and the Gentleman Boys on harmony. Now, the Gentleman Boys, noted at the bottom here, is great array of wonderful LA session singers, musicians. They're Jackson Browne, Jorge Calderon, we'll get to him in a little bit, Kenny Edwards, the beautiful vocal, angelic voice of John David Souther, who would write and record with the Eagles and some great songs of his own, and also Linda Ronstadt, and who would sing with him too, and Waddy Wachtel, of course. And it's a beautiful richness. On the first album, you have that, and you have a few others, like you have Dennis Wilson added. So it's got a little bit of Beach Boys vibe on the first album in terms of background vocals. What I love about Warren's records, almost all through, especially the Asylum years, is he's got this kind of gruff voice. It's a good voice. It's not a perfect melodic voice, but he's in key. He knows where his range is, but he brings these beautiful other singers, really lovely singers, as background and harmonies, and sometimes counterpoints in his songs. And it just makes these records better. And it's a perfectly juxtaposition of music, kind of like what Leonard Cohen, you always would frequently bring on these female vocals, because he's got that griff, lower register voice, and he brings on these beautiful women vocals to supplement that, and it just really works well. Then you have Excitable Boy, probably one of the best songs about a serial killer. Again, a wry sense of humor, a kind of a Norman Bates, Dexter song, and it's great with these wonderful. Now, the harmony in that during the chorus is like a 50s, 60s kind of girl group songs. And it goes obviously with Jim Horn's wonderful sax playing, but you got Jennifer Warnes, Linda Ronstadt, and Waddy Wachtel doing that harmony vocals. And, Linda's voice is strong as hell, and I always love Linda Ronstadt's voice. Same with Jennifer Warnes, of course. She did that wonderful album, a cover of Leonard Cohen songs, and worked with him back in the 70s as well. I just love that collaboration here. Then, of course, you get with the hit. You get Werewolves of London. Let's talk about that. That's the song that really broke him for the semi-masses, I will say. It didn't hit the top 10, not even the top 20, I think, but it was on the charts for a number of weeks. And everyone knows that song, even if they don't know who Warren Zevon is. If you ask the average person, Warren Zevon, most of the time they say no, unfortunately. But when you say Werewolves of London, of course they know that song. Now, that song went through a lot of iterations, a lot of variations of recording. Apparently, they worked on that song longer than it seems. It seems like just a straight song. That's just easy song. It's only 4 pieces on it, and it's Warren on piano, of course. You got Waddy Wachtel on guitar, but then you have John McVie on bass and Mick Fleetwood on drums. And apparently they did a ton of versions to get the rhythm, to get the groove just perfectly. So it's basically Fleetwood Mac. Think about this. The only constant thing of Fleetwood Mac in terms of membership are John McVie and Mick Fleetwood. Going back to the Peter Green years, Jeremy Spencer, all the guitar players, Bob Welch, Lindsey Buckingham, Stevie Nicks, not a guitar player, but that version, and on and on. What's the only constant? The rhythm section. So basically, Werewolves of London could be considered a Fleetwood Mac song. What if that was like the B, like Fleetwood Mac 4.5? I'm kind of jiving here, but you get my drift. When you listen to it and you know the rhythm sound of Fleetwood Mac, the way they record and the way they sound together, the bass comes on. It's just beautiful on that song. And of course, on the 45 version, it's tight, it's big. This is the most forward of all the versions. The MoFi version has a frontal assault, which is sometimes great and sometimes maybe not so great. I love it. Now, am I going to keep the 45? Because Mazzy hates 45s. This is one of my favorite albums, so I will keep it as an alternative version. But, you know, maybe if it came out now, would I buy it after all these other versions? I don't know. Probably not. Not as a 45. If they did a 33, I'd buy it just out of curiosity. You get then into one of the most beautiful songs on here, Accidentally Like a Martyr. I mean, he has a way with beautiful romantic songs that have, again, that little edge, like the Coen brothers edge, a little noir thing. And that's really a beautiful song. Again, Leland Sklar, Russ Kunkel. You have the Gentleman Boys, again, with harmonies added to it is Carla Bonoff, a singer who did a number of records on her own. And I don't have any records anymore, but, you know, a good singer. But I just never got into her music way back when. Now you get into the beginning of side 2, and you get the disco track. 1978, it seems like everyone is trying to do a disco track. As perfect as an album this is, if there was one track that I kind of wish was replaced, was this. But it's a solid track anyway, and it's got a great funkiness to it, and that is A Nighttime in the Switching Yard. Waddy Wachtel, Danny Kortzmar on guitar. So you got left and right channel guitars. So you can follow this schematic and figure out who's playing what. Of course, you got Warren Zevon on synthesizer, Bob Glaub on bass. And the bass is nice and tight and intense. Of course, Jeff Porcaro, who would go on to form Toto on drums, great session musician. You have Greg Landiani on a bell. And of course, the Gentleman Boys on vocals as well. And, you know, it's a good song. I think there was, as I recall, probably a 12-inch single version of that song throughout the disco period. It wasn't really a hit at all. I don't even know if it was released as a single. I'm not quite sure. And again, it's fun. It's a novelty in a way, like Werewolves. But Werewolves is obviously the better song because there's some humor in it. And here it's just kind of a more of a riff, I would say. But then you get into the most beautiful song on the record, and that is Veracruz. Of course, it's about the Mexican-American War, not that war, but the Veracruz thing in 1914, Woodrow Wilson. And, you know, there was a little, obviously, animosity. The wars was happening down there, and then a lot of Mexicans were anti-American during that period of time. And it goes into that. And Warren Zevon, again, as I said, is a great historian and writes beautifully the way his lyrics. Now, this song was co-written by Jorge Calderon, the first of many songs they would write together. He would be on, not all, but most of Warren Zevon's record. He's from Puerto Rico, and this is a stunningly beautiful song. There's Mexican harp on it, there's flutes on it. It's just a really rich, wonderful, beautiful song. Now, the original has a great feel to it. Again, it's a little brighter now. I'm playing these records with my new Spender D7.2 speakers. So my room, my records, my sound is not as bright as it had been with my B&W speakers. But this is an excellent record, especially when that harp comes in and Jorge Calderon's beautiful mid-section where he sings that section all in Spanish. And it's just one of the most beautiful things on this record. Think of it like the beauty, not as humorous, but the beauty of his song Carmelita on the first one, all strung out on heroin on the outskirts of town. Same type of thing. That has a Spanish guitar. This has the harp. So it has that feel. Now, I will say the Rhino hi-fi excels in this period. The mid-ranges on here are stunning. I would say this is a warmer, somewhat warmer cut than the other two completely. Again, the MoFi is a forward frontal assault. which sometimes works and sometimes doesn't when you compare it. The original's got a natural sound to it, typical 70s record of LA record of the time, like those Fleetwood Mac records, Rumors, and the self-titled one, and it's really a beautiful LA recorded record. The Chris Bellman cut of the Rhino Reserve has more depth to it. The percussion you can hear, there's more separation, I will say that. Sometimes more separation to me is not a good thing, but this isn't like that. It still fits together. This is probably the more organic of all three cuts, which means it seems to be more natural. And I think this is the more crankable copy. I liked turning the MoFi up when I was in the mood, when those louder songs like Nighttime in the Switching Yard and Lawyers, Guns, and Money. I really like turning up the Rhino Reserve more than the other two, blasting it, cranking it. And it wasn't just with the louder songs, again, like Switching Yard or Lawyers, Guns, and Money, or even Johnny Strikes Up the Band, which is a great crankable song. I liked this album the best, the Chris Bellman cut, the Reserve the best, with the ballads and the moodiness, all the separation of the different instruments on Veracruz, the wonderful piano riff he does on Tenderness on the Block. What a beauty on that, with Waddy Wachtel, Rick Marotta, and of course the Gentleman Boys again. I think that's a stunner. Same with Accidentally Like a Martyr. I like cranking that on here. And Roland the Headless Thompson Gunner. Again, another favorite song of mine, apparently a favorite song of David Letterman. If you ever watched the Letterman show, Warren Zevon was a regular guest on it all through the years, and to that final show when he was dying, and he was on there talking about that. This is such a beautiful record. If you have an original, do you need another one? Maybe not, but if you don't have any version, I would, instead of going maybe for a $10 or $15 or $20 used of an original, I'd go with the Rhino Reserve, because this is a quiet pressing, this is a dynamic pressing, and this is a faithful pressing to the original, but it does add something. The little percussive additions I notice more on this. I would like them to do a version of this. Now, they did a reissue with an extra disc based on a CD a couple years ago. I love the original. To me, the original is still the best pressing of this album here. What was interesting, when MoFi announced that this was coming out, it took about a year, more than a year for it to come out. They also announced that this was going to come out. And after about a year, I think just prior to this finally coming out, they said this wasn't going to come out anymore. It was canceled. Now, I always wondered, was it a tape issue? Because I remember there was a Rhino about 2010, 2012 that came out, that Kevin Gray cut, that I wasn't a fan of. And there was something about it. It seemed muffled to me. And I know Kevin, I think I mentioned something, and he commented he was really surprised to hear me say that, because I love his cutting usually. And I wonder if there is an issue with the tapes on this record or something. I don't know. I don't know if there is, but to me, I would like to see a Rhino Reserve version of this, or even a Rhino Hi-Fi version of this. Chris Bellman or Kevin Gray, because this, to me, is the perfect record of the two. But they're both wonderful records. So that's it. This is Shootout of a great album, Excitable Boy, Warren Zevon, 1978. Go check it out. And I bought this in a store. Thank you. Mazzy loves you.